Hello everyone and welcome to the tavern. Man, what a difference a week makes. Last week we had a very slow plotting episode that's basically about love triangles and then ending with a tiny bit of action at the very back of the show. This week we get an episode about interpersonal drama, about inner struggle, and with a whole load of deep themes and character development. It is significantly better than last week because they actually did the interpersonal drama correctly. This will be a difficult episode to avoid spoilers on, but I will do my best to not ruin this episode for those who have yet to see it. Once again, we have two parallel stories, but both go under the title of Life-Death, as opposed to the previous Life-Death episode, which was only half of an episode, and really, really good. We follow Storm after the attack by the adversary, where we see that Forge has been poisoned by the bite, and Storm must confront this monster and face the evils and self-doubts that the demon brings with it. This is followed by Storm going on a quest to find a cure for the poison that's killing Forge. And in that process, confronting her weaknesses, confronting her fears, and finally regaining her strength and her confidence. Meanwhile, we cut to the Shi'ar in their war against the Kree, but more than that, we finally get to see Xavier again, fully healed after the trauma he suffered in the last episode of Season 5 of the X-Men. We see him with Lilandra as she announces their engagement. However, this leads to a lot of political turmoil going on in the Shi'ar Empire, as Terrans are generally looked down upon in the galactic community. We then have Xavier confronting the bias against humans, while also having to make a choice between Earth and his love for Lilandra. In addition to that, we get to see a few battle scenes with the Shi'ar warriors, kicking some butt. Because they don't show up in too many episodes, it really makes it a treat to see these crazy aliens. This is the first episode that explores themes and does it thoroughly, to a point that I was incredibly happy with how they covered them. On the Storm side, you have the struggles of self-doubt, as Storm is confronted with things she has said, things she has done, and of course, her fear of enclosed spaces, and her doubts about whether or not she truly wants to be an X-Men again. It's really well handled, and Storm's way of overcoming these self-doubts and finding her purpose again was really, really well handled with some amazing acting on the part of Storm's actress. Charles Xavier is dealing with the bigotry of the Shi'ar towards humanity as a whole. And in this, he ends up using his powers to communicate with the nobility of the Shi'ar, explaining to them that weakening others and forcing them to submit to you, that you don't need to weaken someone else in order to strengthen yourself. That through cooperation, greater things can be achieved because you're having the best aspects of everyone come together to create greater things. Cooperation is better than fighting. To make things even better, there is an overarching theme for the episode that ties both stories together, and that is perseverance. Never giving up, no matter what challenges face you. This ties into the title of Life-Death and the concept of choosing to live even if it's difficult, rather than die or cower away from the challenges that are presented in front of you. Brilliant work of the writing this episode. On the character side of things, of course, we have three major characters to talk about, as well as a few minor characters. Storm is a huge focus for the episode, as a lot of this episode contains her battles, usually verbally and emotionally, with the adversary, and how she faces this demonic owl and confronts her issues with Forge and her issues with herself. Not only that, but at the end of the episode, we get her in her black outfit, so she's gotten a costume upgrade. Somehow. She's just wearing her overalls, and then suddenly, boom, black outfit. I guess the power of nature can also create costumes. Forge is dying for the majority of the episode, but also explaining his inner doubts, his anxieties, his guilt at everything that has happened. And through Storm's kindness, through her efforts, he is not only healed physically, but starts down the road of accepting what he is dealing with emotionally. It's really well done, and it shows a very strong emotional link between Storm and Forge that feels more real than it did in Life-Death Part 1. Seeing Xavier again is a treat. He is a great character, and having him face a very different type of bigotry was really interesting, because you can see the conflict in him. His desire for love, but his love for his family, the X-Men. His want to see and experience new things, but his desire to protect and save Earth. Plus, you get that super-based moment where he brings everyone into an astral plane classroom, takes command, and literally schools them. Finally, in terms of minor characters, I just want to briefly touch on the Shi'ar. Lilandra is still really bland as a character. She was in the original series too, and honestly, I never thought she was that interesting in the comics. Her ability to stand up to other people is limited to very hollow words that are immediately shot down. Lilandra herself really is the puppet princess that the Shi'ar view her as. Gladiator. Man, I love this guy. He is basically Shi'ar Superman, and I'm perfectly fine with that. You get to see him show off his powers, kick some butt. He has the personality of a block of wood, but hey, it doesn't matter. That's not his role. He's a bodyguard to the royal family and a really skilled fighter. Finally, we get Deathbird. She's just as badass as she's supposed to be, and I really like her functioning as an antagonist for the Xavier side of the episode, in addition to seeing her fight against the Kree in the beginning of the episode. She has the kind of physical and verbal strength that lets her act as a threat to not only Lilandra and Xavier's happiness, but to Lilandra's throne overall. On the audio side of things, we got some great voice acting. There's a lot of emotion put into most of the characters, especially on the Storm and Forge side. You really do feel the terror and the struggle that those two characters are facing. Amazing work. The actor who played Xavier also did a really good job with giving a proper Xavier speech and showing that authority that Xavier has in the classroom. The reason why all these teenagers with superpowers listen to Xavier. He knows what he's talking about, and he knows how to approach things, and he can be strict when he needs to be. Lilandra's actress is fine. It's nothing special, and her character really isn't a great character to begin with, so you're not really losing a lot with having a mid-performance for Lilandra. All the other side characters seem to be fairly well done. I have no complaints there at all. We also have some solid sound design throughout the episode, especially as Storm is confronting the adversary, and the soundscape helps enhance the Shi'ar fight scenes and create a sense of atmosphere for the astral plane. The only flaw I can think of in the audio is the use of a little bit of modern language, such as saying the quiet part out loud, which is much more of a modern idiom, but like Lilandra's performance, it's a minor nitpick. The one thing that makes the visuals work really well, especially in the Storm side of the story, is the adversary. The way the head twists around, the way it is handled and utilized in those same scenes, the look of fear, terror, and pain on both Storm and Forge's faces. A lot of work was put into making this a really striking, memorable episode to take the story of the adversary and adapt it in a way that really hits home with the threats and the internal turmoil this demonic being creates. As I've said in previous other sections, the Kree and Shi'ar battle is really fun, and seeing the Shi'ar show off their cool powers is always a good time, and they really did it justice in this episode. I love the astral plane section and how all these powerful warriors are just kind of forced to sit in a old school classroom as Xavier eats an apple and schools the Shi'ar on his point of view versus their politics. Finally, the very end of the episode has some really creepy visuals with the Puppet Master who set up the attack on Genosha. It all just comes together into a perfect mosaic of visual storytelling. This might sound strange, but watching this episode kind of made me want to be a teacher, despite the fact it doesn't feel like a job I'd want. But seeing Xavier stand up there and lecture with all that confidence, it's a bit inspiring to anyone who has taught or has the ambition of becoming a teacher. More than that, though, this episode just made me feel hyped. This is the level of quality I wanted throughout the entire series. And having mediocre episode after mediocre episode kind of made me feel bleh. So much so that I actually kind of avoided watching this episode until much later in the day. Previously, it had been the first thing I would do in the morning. This episode made me glad I started this review series, because if I hadn't started doing these reviews, I probably wouldn't have watched the show at all. I probably would have written it off as a many years too late sequel series that nobody asked for. Hopefully it can maintain this level of quality, which is obviously my big worry because we have 4 episodes left and there's no guarantee they will stick the landing. This might just be the best episode of the entire series, and that's why the final score is 5 out of 5. A score I did not think I would give to a single episode of this series. And yet, here we are. It goes to show that when you adapt something properly, when you add the right amount of emotion mixed with action, mixed with stakes and drama, you can make a great X-Men story. And that's exactly what this was. Plus, we've set the table for everyone to get back together in episode 7 and have that 3-part finale, which is hopefully going to be as good as this episode. Let me know what you thought of Life Death Part 2 in the comments below. Beyond that, please like, subscribe, and share this with all your classic X-Men animated series friends. Until next time, thank you for watching, and I'll see you at the tavern.